You're listening to 96.3 FM, 1370 AM, The Source. Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday as we're moving through here, April 20th, 420. And it is now time for news bits of news that you can chew. And doing so, just to get right into it, as it is approaching closer, we do have a tornado watch in effect this morning, April 20th, until 11 a.m. Eastern Time. As you look to the west here, even checking out the radar, there is some severe weather making its way that is getting a little bit closer here, with an expectation of some heavy rains, along with some heavy sustained winds, as well as strong wind gusts near 30 miles per hour, as that's making its way here within the next 45 minutes to an hour. We could see those strong wind gusts and that rain as that front starting to begin to get here, if you will. So head on a swivel and be safe out there, as the wind advisory is in effect as well from this morning until 4 o'clock this afternoon, as they expect the front to move through. Even with the precipitation that's expected, with some thunderstorms coming through at the front, even after that, some high winds as the front pushes on. So do be safe out there, as there is now severe thunderstorm warnings in effect right now to last for the next hour and a half, 2 hours, as this front moves through, as it's getting a little darker out there nonetheless, as we're expecting to have this weather come through here, like we said, within the next 45 minutes. With that's how we're beginning news bits this morning, as what's relevant to the news right now is the weather that's moving through. So do be safe out there. And like we said, if you have any patio furniture or anything in the backyard or anything loose, with the expectations of the winds that are already starting to kick up, they say to take care of what needs to be done, so that way you don't have that stuff flying around. As we say, be safe out there nonetheless. Now, the expectation of this rain today is to move a front through to where we would see clearing tonight, and or late this afternoon into tonight, with a low tonight in the 60s. Where tomorrow we would see just a beautiful day, mostly sunny skies, high near 85, with some less windy conditions, and that would move into Wednesday too, being a nice day in the mid 80s with mostly sunny skies into Wednesday night, where it becomes a little bit cloudier. The expectation of Thursday having more showers likely. So there you go. And like we said, just one more repeat of that. Severe thunderstorm warning this morning is in effect, as well as a tornado watch until 11, and a wind advisory in effect for today until 4 p.m. So like we said, be safe out there, and if you don't have anywhere to go just yet, just kind of wait a little bit. Nonetheless, I think it deserves just a little bit. See, weather like this keeps you a little bit easier to stay at home, so to speak, as far as feeling like if you are stuck at home. Nonetheless, as we move to news bits, to the idea of some other stuff that's been coming up with in lieu of COVID-19, as the U.S. death toll hits nearly 40,000 as New York begins a mass antibody testing campaign, and cash for small business is coming. It says an apparently coronavirus-free luxury cruise ship was ending its 15-week odyssey in Spanish Port Monday. While at home, the U.S. death toll rose to about 2,000, and political leaders bickered over lockdowns, bailouts, and protests. And in Washington, a deal appeared close to provide an additional $300 billion for small business, and crushed by the stay-at-home orders. The deal would also provide more funding for hospitals and for testing. In New York, public health officials plan to kick off the most extensive antibody testing campaign in the nation. In Pennsylvania's capital city of Harrisburg, a protest was planned Monday by opponents of Governor Tom Wolf's restrictive stay-at-home order. And last week, the Pennsylvania legislature passed a bill that would reopen some business, but Wolf, a Democrat, said he will veto it. Similar protests began springing up across the country in recent days, as most people are jobless, with numbers rise for that, and patience starts to thin. Now, with the U.S. death toll as it surpassed this weekend with 40,000, with more than 750,000 confirmed cases, according to Johns Hopkins University data. The number of worldwide cases was nearing 2.5 million, with over 165,300 deaths. And that's where they assume that New York State will begin antibody testing thousands of residents this week to try to determine the breadth of the coronavirus outbreak. And Governor Andrew Cuomo said that Sunday that a test was approved by the FDA, and that testing will take place in the most aggressive way in the nation. Antibody testing reflects how many people have been infected by the virus. Health experts hope the antibodies provide people with the defenses against COVID-19. As they said, new cases, hospitalization, and intubations all appear to be receding in the state of New York. The most recent daily death toll, 507, was down almost 10% from the previous day and represented the lowest total in more than 2 weeks as that goes. So there you go. So a little bit more of what's going on with some of the ideas of other places protesting stuff, but lawmakers doing what they can to try to figure out what's the next step in guidelines for having the governors reopen states. Now, today is, and I thought it's worth talking about in lieu of the platform, the conversation. Today, for some people, is an interesting day of the concept of what they could consider a looking forward to day, something we would throw up there maybe nowadays with the rankings of St. Patrick's Day or Cinco de Mayo, is marijuana's biggest moment, as pot stores are now essential business, considering it is 420, and the conversation about marijuana and will illegal marijuana go mainstream. Now, out of Denver, the marijuana industry is embracing change. It says edible products and pre-rolled joints are out. Vape concentrates and loose, quote, flower, which can be packed into pipes, bongs, joints, and all that good stuff, provide more bang for the buck. Now, stores are effectively closed of COVID-19. Instead, customers order online and pick up curbside. Major shift from when each buyer had to be personally verified by a licensed store worker. Now, in California, stores have largely switched to an all-delivery model. The country's burgeoning marijuana industry is working swiftly to adapt its customers' needs as the coronavirus outbreak wreaks havoc across the U.S. economy, and with business owners unable to access federal bailouts because the drug remains illegally nationally, and popular 420 events canceled because of the stay-at-home order, sellers are pushing for new ways to reach customers and persuade lawmakers that legal weed has become a crucial industry for the United States of America. As, quote, this is cannabis's moment to find its purpose and its vote, said Julie Armstrong, the CEO of Montana-based cannabis analytics firm. Excuse me. As it was the opportunity we never saw coming. Now, the outbreak has brought new challenges for legal weed sellers. Social distancing has required retailers to essentially abandon their carefully designed stores and switch to curbside and delivery services. Now, statewide, in Colorado, shutdowns have also forced the cancellation of 420 celebrations, which are usually the highest sale periods of the year, and the date around which much of the industry's planting, harvesting, and production is scheduled. Now, and it also appears to have at least temporarily halted New York State's marijuana reform efforts, in which it is widely seen a major step in the road towards national legalization. Officials there appear to have set aside legalization efforts while they deal with the outbreak, which has hit New York harder than any other. But it's also spurred many customers to go on buying sprees to cope with the long, dull days at home and the anxiety over the national's mass layoffs and growing death toll, and prompted regulators in many states to declare cannabis shops essential business on par with groceries, gas, and liquor. In this, quote, critical service, the portion that has many cannabis advocates optimistic that the outbreak has become a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to move further into the mainstream. It is a, quote, really popular point that we were deemed essential in a sea of chaos. This is one of the biggest moments in our industry's history, said Morgan Paxia, the manager partner of a California-based Poseidon assessment management company, which invests in the cannabis business. Store operators say it's about time that regulators began treating marijuana stores on par with compatible retailers. In Colorado, regulators are even letting cannabis store workers get their mandatory state license remotely instead of having to show up in person at the licensing office. And it says here it would, quote, normally take 2 to 5 years for lobbyists and legislation to catch up to where California is today, said Christian Schenk, CEO and delivery company Drive-In Deliveries Incorporated. It says industry experts say this would also be necessary to push or persuade Congress to permit marijuana business to use banks like any other business, because because cash could potentially be a vector for spreading coronavirus. Now, banks are generally reluctant to let marijuana business get accounts for fear that they will be targeted by prosecutors chasing drug traffickers, as the Trump administration has so far remained silent on the role of marijuana during the national emergency, leaving states to decide how to proceed. And so most have either maintained or even broadened access via delivery and curbside service. Now, 11 states have legalized recreational marijuana, along with the District of Columbia, and 33 states permit some form of medicinal use, as included here with Florida, as that was passed just a few years ago. Massachusetts stands alone as the only state now limiting legalization pot shops to only medical users, shutting out recreational buyers. Governor Charlie Baker argued, and a judge agreed, keeping the shops closed to recreational buyers would help protect public health, and a decision applauded by the anti-legalization group Smart Approaches to Marijuana. Some health experts say consuming marijuana and smoking it in particularly could put the user at a greater risk for the coronavirus since it attacks the lungs. So everybody's got their opinion on what it deems from that. But it's a conversation that has been brought up a little bit more by a lot of the idea of the states when we look at the idea of states' rights in itself, too, in lieu of, and what they carry on with, which we'll talk about when we come back from break, is with that in mind, too, to the stay-at-home orders coming from a lot of governors with states. So it's all kind of intertwined, and what better day to talk about it than on 420, I guess. As we're making our way towards the top of the 9 o'clock hour, you're listening to 96.3 FM, 1370 AM. As we said, there is a tornado watch until 11 a.m., as that storm is now getting closer to Ocala here in Marion County. As we say, be safe out there. Wind gusts near 30. Be careful, 80% chance of rain. We'll be back right after this. WOCA The Source, WOCA Ocala.
I'm Chris Foster. President Trump and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi both say a deal's close on getting more money into a program meant to help small businesses avoid layoffs due to the coronavirus outbreak.
We're continuing to negotiate with the Democrats.